So this week's Torah portion, Noach, it begins with destruction. We know the story, the flood. But it ends with a rainbow. It ends with something rather colorful. There were 10 generations after Adam and Eve were created that humanity has to descend into lawlessness and chaos. This is the story of the Torah. Adam and Eve, 10 generations later, humanity descends into lawlessness and chaos. And God responds to that by flooding the earth. And only Noah, his family, and a sampling of animals survive aboard the ark. There's months of chaos. The floodwaters recede. Finally, the ark settles. And God sets a keshet, a bow, or a rainbow, across the sky. The rainbow represents a better future, that the world will not be destroyed again, and instead it will be repaired, one generation at a time, beginning with Noah. Rabbi Melanie Aaron once observed that in the ancient world, the bow was not just a decoration or something colorful. A bow was a weapon. The power of the rainbow in the story, she wrote, comes from that reversal. The bow is turned away from the earth. Think of a rainbow as a bow like the weapon pointed away from the earth. The weapon of destruction becomes the sign of peace. And God, in that moment, limits divine power and binds it to compassion. Ever since this Torah portion, thousands of years old, rainbows have held significant symbolic power in Jewish tradition. This is perhaps especially true in a well-known song, Somewhere Over the Rainbow. You might not think of that as a Jewish song, but trust me, it is. In fact, Tablet Magazine, who's an expert on such things, I've been told, once said that Somewhere Over the Rainbow is actually the #1 Jewish song of all time. Let me tell you the story of the song. It was written in 1939 by 2 Jewish songwriters from Tin Pan Alley, Harold Arlen, who was born Hyman Arluck, and Yip Harburg, the son of Yiddish-speaking immigrants. Arlen's father was actually a cantor. He grew up surrounded by Jewish music, if anybody ever was. And though the movie The Wizard of Oz was just a Hollywood fantasy, the melody that he wrote, came out of a very deeply Jewish musical imagination. Think of the song. It's aching, it's hopeful, it stretches towards the heavens. Arlen and Harburg were writing that song. When they were writing that song, it came in a particular moment in history. That moment was 1939, when the Jewish world was on the edge of catastrophe. The clouds of war were gathering over Europe, and the flood was soon to come. The Holocaust had not yet begun, but the hostility to Jewish life in Europe was evident. And out of that anxiety came this extraordinary song. It's a lullaby, really, but also a prayer in its own way. Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby. They sang of a home that they yearned for, a promised land that brought a sense of safety and security in the same way that a lullaby does. For them, and for so many Jews of their generation, home was complicated. Their parents had fled Europe. They'd fled pogroms and poverty. And when they had found safety, they did not necessarily find belonging. Somewhere Over the Rainbow is not a song of Kansas. It's a song of galut, of exile. It's the dream of every generation that has felt far from home and yet refuses to stop singing about it. Yesterday, I heard Rabbi Angela Buchdahl, she's of Central Synagogue fame, speak about this very song as one of her favorites. She said it captures the heart of Jewish hope, that even when we are displaced, she said, even when we feel far from safety or certainty, such as Noah must have felt during the flood, we never stop imagining something better, something just beyond the horizon. In that way, it's perfectly paired with this week's Torah portion, Noach. Noach, too, lives through an exile of sorts. He spends months sealed inside of an ark, surrounded by water, cut off from the familiar. The story of Noah and the flood, it's not really a children's story. It was never intended to be the inspiration for murals decorating nurseries. It's the story of devastation, but also hope. When Noah finally steps out of the ark, the world is entirely changed. The landscape is new and the past is gone. His first act is to build an altar to worship God. Now, altars in Jewish tradition aren't meant to evoke sacrifices, but rather closeness between people and God. The Hebrew word for sacrifice doesn't actually mean sacrifice at all. The Hebrew word is korban, which means nearness. That means that when Noah built an ark, that was after Noah built an ark and he built an altar, that was Noah reaching for a relationship. God answers with the rainbow, the sign that destruction is not the final word. But the Torah's rainbow and Arlen's rainbow from somewhere over the rainbow, they're both born from fear, but they end in faith. Both teach that the world can begin again. And here's another deep message from it. The beauty of a rainbow comes from the way that many colors coexist. That's the Torah's first lesson about covenantal life. That diversity is not a flaw in creation. It's the prism through which holiness shines. The Zohar, medieval Jewish mystical text, sees the rainbow as a reflection of God's divine light, that different colors correspond to different sorts of emanations of God's presence in the world. And when we look at a rainbow, according to the Zohar, we glimpse a unity that holds the world together despite its differences. Light itself must pass through water, maybe even through tears, and then it reveals all of the spectrum. Tomorrow morning, Hank and Maddie will read from this week's Torah portion, Noach, as they are called to the Torah as B'nai Mitzvah. And like Noach, they'll be stepping into new responsibilities. And like the composers of Somewhere Over the Rainbow, like Harlan and Harburg, they'll add their voices to the chorus of Jewish hope. Their portion ends with that radiant image of covenant, the rainbow stretched across the sky. It's not a guarantee that life will be easy, but a reminder that faith means seeing not just the storm, but the light after the storm. When we bless the rainbow, there's a blessing in Jewish tradition for rainbows. It goes, Baruch atah Adonai zocher habrit. Blessed are you, God, who remembers the covenant with Noah. The blessing is not for the colors themselves, but rather for memory. That's what zocher means, to remember. The memory that beauty can follow chaos and that home can always be found again. So tonight, as Shabbat is beginning this Friday night, maybe we can hear Harold Arlen's melody and God's covenant as two voices singing the same promise, that even after the flood of water, of history, and of heartbreak, there's always a rainbow to be found. Shabbat Shalom.
Dreams that you dare to dream really do come true. Someday I'll wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where troubles melt like lemon drops away upon the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me, somewhere over the rainbow. Bluebirds fly, birds fly over the rainbow. Why then, oh, why can't I? If happy little bluebirds fly beyond the rainbow, why, oh,